January the 23rd, President Trump officially recognized the president of the Venezuelan National Assembly, Juan Guaido, as the interim president of Venezuela. Venezuela's National Assembly invoked Article 233 of the country's constitution to declare Nicolas Maduro illegitimate. This action was a statement that the people of Venezuela have had enough of oppression, corruption, and economic hardship. Since then, 21 other governments in the region and across the world have joined the United States in recognizing Guaido as Venezuela's interim president. Today, and I'll turn the podium over to Stephen Mnuchin for this purpose, we're going to announce sanctions against Petroleos de Venezuela, Sociedad Anima, or PDVSA, as it's known by its Spanish acronym, the state-owned oil monopoly. We have continued to expose the corruption of Maduro and his cronies, and today's action ensures they can no longer loot the assets of the Venezuelan people. Now is the time to stand for democracy and prosperity in Venezuela. I reiterate that the United States will hold Venezuelan security forces responsible for the safety of all U.S. diplomatic personnel, the National Assembly, and President Guaido. Any violence against these groups would signify a grave assault on the rule of law and will be met with a significant response.
Is there any circumstance under which American forces would get involved?
Look, the President has made it very clear on this matter that all options are on the table.
All right, joining us now, Vanessa Neumann, President Asymmetrica, following this very closely. She's a dual citizen, U.S., Venezuela. Vanessa, good to have you with us. These sanctions, what do you think?
Oh, thank you. I'm thrilled because some of us have been advocating for quite a while because the irony was that the U.S. is, very, very opposed to the Maduro regime, and yet it was still the primary buyer of its oil. So on the one hand, while they're while they're saying that they're taking these actions against Maduro, they were still being the biggest financier, and that led to certain inconsistencies, especially diplomatically. Now that you're getting all these other countries on board to say Maduro's a dictator, which he is. So that was really, it's logically consistent that they would cut off the funding and their biggest asset, their biggest golden goose, the one thing that really keeps the regime alive, is actually inside the United States. It's Citgo. So Citgo, the gasoline stations where you fuel up your car in over a quarter of the territory of the U.S., then it has refineries in Louisiana and Texas. That's their golden goose. So now and it's a subsidiary of PDVSA. So now with sanctioning this, you've really strangled the regime. You've brought the U.S. a policy, made it consistent, and this is saying you're just going to get no more money. Now, when these guys, it's no secret that we're trying to get the military to flip allegiances. I mean, they're saying it on television. Please get on the side of the people. When these guys realize that there will be no paychecks coming if they stay where they are, that increases the pressure for them to flip.
So the flipping, this is what you said yesterday, and I really took this to heart. You said, when the generals don't get paid, because that's the reason they're staying, when the money fund is gone and they abandon Maduro, it's over.
Well, yeah, it would have to be over because that's what we're looking for. The military needs to come on side with what is the constitutional president. Guaido is the constitutional president. They need to behave like a military and not just a gang of thugs. The reason why they keep staying with Maduro is because they are a gang of thugs and they're up to their necks in drug trafficking, terrorist financing, human rights abuses. But Guaido, in order to at least get the transition started and keep the country from falling apart, to transition it and bring it all together rather than a civil war or anything like that, he has said, if you join us, we will give you amnesty. That will be controversial down the line. There are thousands of families who are going to say, you can't really forgive my son's murder. But we will have to deal with that later on down the line.
Well, right. Right.
Yeah, but at the moment, yes, we need to get the military. What they should do is to flip and to say, swear allegiance to Guaido, the constitutional president, and take the top 12 people from the regime and put them on an airplane out. That's the best way to do this. If that doesn't happen, it starts to get really messy. So there's a lot of pressure for this to happen fast. If you keep cracking the regime and they won't go, they could be killed from within. The Gaddafi, the Ceausescu option, and that's we're not actually asking for that. We're not looking for that. That would be messy. And of course, the worst scenario is some military flip and some stay, and then you have military against military, and we don't want that either.
So, days, weeks, months.
Well, hard to tell. I mean, basically, a lot of it's basically in the hands of the military, whether they flip or they switch, and whether they change allegiances. I mean, we're hoping that it'll be a matter of days, because there's a lot of activity to, there's a lot of call for them to get back on side. The increasing diplomatic pressure is definitely. With more and more countries, including Israel and Australia, also recognize the presidency of Guaido as the interim president. The freezing of the bank accounts is like, hey, you're not going to get paid. This ends badly. And if they want to keep seeking money basically through drug trafficking, then you're just a drug cartel. The United States knows how to deal with those, and that's not pretty. So they're starting to run out of reasonable options. And tomorrow there's another call for massive protests countrywide to encourage the military to get on side with the people. So the idea is to show the strength of the will of the people, that they want out, and that the military should come and join them. So that's what's going on. So it could be over by the weekend, or this could drag on for months. So it's basically in their hands. But the strategy is going very, very well. If this starts to drag on for months, I think the U.S. would be really well advised to open up a lot of the indictments that we know that are sealed, that we know that they have, make them public and make them RICO statutes, right? And basically treat the Maduro cartel as the drug cartel that it is, and start issuing arrest warrants, a bit like they did with Noriega, because that's really sort of the next stage escalation if this starts to drag on.
So this really puts the generals, Vanessa, in a fix here, in a hard spot, because they know that if there's a possibility, I don't know what the odds are, but there's a possibility that if Maduro goes down and they flip, that they're all going to get prosecuted. So if they think that, then they're just going to go down with the ship, because the alternative is they go to jail.
Guaido has offered them amnesty, right? In other words, they won't be tried. They'll be forgiven within Venezuela. I'm not sure other countries are going to make those promises. The U.S. has its own cases against them. And I would imagine other countries, too. I mean, they're the biggest drug trafficking organization going into Europe and Africa and everything else. So, there are plenty of countries that don't like these guys. So we'll have to see. I agree that that's a challenge for them. That why they might want to hang on. But arguably, they would face those charges anyway if they do hang on.
Right.
So they would be well advised to make a deal now and at least have some basis for amnesty.
Right. So they're better off taking the deal now and getting the amnesty from Guaido than face the consequences later with no deal, which they're all going to get arrested. Or many of them are going to get arrested.
Exactly, because now you have, I've lost track of how many countries have now recognized Guaido, but now we're extending, with Australia, we're now extending into Asia. If you start looking at the map, and the only people who are advocating for Maduro are Russia, China, which won't defend them militarily. I mean, China just wants to protect its money. And then you have, and Hezbollah, a terrorist group. With friends like these, it's almost like it's almost like further advertising of our cause. You can just see who their friends are, and you'll see why we want them out.
So the bottom line.
I think keep looking for more countries to recognize. Keep looking. This is my prediction for how this unravels further on down the line. Look for other countries to freeze more bank accounts. There are bank accounts in the European Union. There's in Cyprus, Andorra. There are bank accounts in various places. So I would imagine that in Switzerland. Now you're going to look for that. So I would look for increasing numbers of countries recognizing. That's the diplomatic pressure. I would look for increasing number of frozen bank accounts. That's the financial pressure to ramp up quickly, because this is changing like by the hour. And then I would also look for more pressure from the inside Venezuela. What the Venezuelans are going to do for themselves is now they're going to name an alternative board to Citgo, which is a subsidiary that's here in the U.S. of the oil company. They've already announced that. And then they will, a subsidiary here in the U.S., and they'll announce those new board members and start to continue to announce their slate of ambassadors and everything else. All right. So they're going to start to really form a government, and that's going to accelerate the legitimacy operations. And then on the other hand, you'll have the financial asphyxiation operations escalating as well. That's what I would look for. Mark my words.
You've been spot on this, Vanessa, the whole time. So let me ask you this. All this goes down. We have a regime change. What's the future of Vanessa Neumann?
I don't know. I'll put it this way. If my new interim president were to call on me to serve my country, well, both Venezuela and the U.S. are my countries, but if I were called to serve in some capacity in the transition, I would be absolutely delighted and honored. I think it's a historic moment, and if I might be honored enough to bring my, my skills and my expertise to bear for the good of the transition back to democracy, I would be very happy.
Vanessa Neumann, we can say we knew you when.
Yes. Well, let's watch this. It's still turbulent waters out there, so we need to keep tracking it.
All right.
But thank you for your support. You've been a tremendous supporter of our fight for freedom. So I really appreciate it, John.
Well,
no one
I'm
like
there.
you. Thank you.
I'm there for you guys, have been from the beginning, and appreciate your daily segment. Now you've gone from weekly to daily. Now we can't get enough of you.
I know.
Now you're on every day. I call you every day. Like,
I know,
you got to give us an update. And you're probably going to come on daily until you're government official and no longer available. John Fredericks Radio Network. That's normally what happens to my guests.
Once you go into a government, then you can't really speak. You're not even speaking your mind
you're done.
anymore,
Now,
right?
you're certainly, if you're a government official without it being sanctioned, you're certainly not going to do the John Fredericks Radio Network. I can guarantee you that. Vanessa, thanks for being with us. Great to hear from you. We'll talk to you again. Tomorrow while you're still free to talk to us.